Hey, what's going on, interwebs? It's your boy Emilio Sparks, the Charlie Rose of hip hop. I'm hanging out with Limo Rich Hil, Richard Hil the fourth. What can we call you?
Ricky Hil.
Ricky Hil. I'm chilling with Ricky Hil. And yo, man, glad you're home. Glad you're back doing what you love to do.
Me too, man. I'm glad I'm home too.
Has the mentality changed now? Is it like the thought process for writing more difficult now because you're not like smoking the weed and like doing whatever else that you were doing to, I guess, I don't know, because you know how it is, like Hendrix talked about creativity with substances. Miles Davis used to use substances when he used to write.
Yeah.
Like, has the creativity process become difficult, or is it actually more like easier now?
Believe it or not, it's kind of getting easier for me. I think just because I had so much time off, and really the weed, I wasn't really getting high anymore because I was smoking an ounce a day, and you only really get high off the first blunt of the day. Okay. You know, so it wasn't really making a big difference for my writing, but just being away for such a long time, I had so much stuff going on in my head. So fresh out of rehab, it's like it's easier to express my feelings. I don't really think it has anything to do with drugs or not, but I just liked weed because it mellows you out.
What's the big thing that Rich Hil learned about himself when Rich Hil was away?
I learned that the consequences that I'm going through are a lesson, like a life lesson, rather than just some bullshit that I have to deal with. I look at it like it was probably supposed to happen, because if it didn't happen, then my future wouldn't be what it's going to be. Because if I just kept going on the same path I was going, like you said about the weed rap, I would have gotten too caught up in the trend of weed rap, which is, in my eyes, gonna be corny in a year. When everybody's talking about doobies and blunts and ounces and shit like that, it's just gonna get corny. So I want to take it to the next level and start using imagination in my music and so on and so forth. Which is crazy because you played us some stuff like before, and like now, like the music has changed from when I first heard your music. Like till now, it's crazy because now you're influencing more of like the rock tone. I guess you're embracing that inner Ricky Hil hippie, like that, you know, that you were slowly leaking out like before. So like talk about this, like the style change now. Like what made you want to gear towards a lot more like live instrumentation with like guitars and drums? Well, in rehab, I had a lot of free time on my hands, so I would sit in my room and I would read books on, I read a Hendrix biography and a Jim Morrison biography, and I really studied them and their lives, and I'm trying to channel that and embody that whole era of rock music and bring it to hip-hop, or whatever you want to call it. What I do, I don't know what it is. Yo, we gotta talk about your Twitter game because it's crazy. There's it's like a cult following with you. A lot of you gave me a couple followers tonight when we were hanging out in the studio. The one when I mentioned you brought Ritz crackers, people were like hitting me up saying like, oh cool, could you eat the Ritz crackers on the Ustream? I'm like, I wanna eat Ritz crackers on a fucking Ustream, like, you know what I mean? But talk about, I guess, like the fan, the fan response to you, because it is cool. I always see you talk to fans, no matter where, outside, on Twitter, on the Ustream. Yeah. I mean, like, for real, you are probably one of the more fan-friendly artists that will actually interact and not get so industry to the point where you have this, like, oh shit, this preconceived notion of Rich Hil is an asshole, because it's totally not the case. Yeah, I mean, I love the fans because I think they have the same feeling about me, because I'm the only one in this day and age that's using vulnerability in my music, you know? And the human being, the nature of a human being is vulnerable, whether we want to admit it or not. And I'm not the type to brag or talk about cars or blah, 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 blah. And that's where the whole limo thing comes from. Fuck limos, because it's like saying middle finger to the flashy lifestyle. You know what I mean? So that's what I try to embody, and being close to my fans is a big part of that. Because if they like my music, then they must be just like me.
So, what is the major preconceived notion that you could tell people that when it comes to growing up with money? Because a lot of people say, you know, like this person really shouldn't complain about like their life, or like they really shouldn't be like abusing substances because of the way they were brought up, and because of like, I guess, like the trust fund, or you know, whatever negative connotation that does come with strangers not knowing what the person has to go through. What can you tell these people watching this about like growing up with money? What's like a major notion that's a false?
It's a lonely world, because people think you have it all, but you have nothing. You know, there's the bum on the corner downstairs by the Chinese store has more substance to his life than I ever had because of what he's been through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I guess.
So I love that. I love the slums. I love everything about it because there's culture there, there's substance there. You know, with rich people, with people with money, there's no substance. They just think it's all about money, or the car you're driving, or the nice watch you have on. It has nothing to do with that. It's more about if you have substance as a person. You know, not what's on the outside of you. So that's what means that's what means the most to me. And growing up like that, people look at you and they have prejudgment and this, that, and the fourth, and it's just not as cool as rappers make it seem. Right? You know what I mean?
What was the greatest piece of advice your father's given you thus far? Like, I know you guys have probably spoken when you were in rehab and stuff like that. Like, what's like the greatest thing he's ever taught you?
Well, when I was 4 years old, he told me never to brag, and I think about that every day probably.
Would you ever actually start your own clothing label? Because every rapper now wants to do a clothing label that tends to, I guess, urban and skating wear. Would Rich Hil ever decide to do that, or nah, that's not what Rich Hil wants?
Currents?
Yeah.
Me and him are working on a clothing line.
Oh, that's gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Currents is the dude, man. Big shout outs to Currents. I respect his music a lot. But yeah, nah, so I guess that's it. I guess we're done. It's Charlie Rose of Hip Hop. It's your boy Emilio Sparks. I'm Rich Hil. We actually can see into other people's buildings, so because we're up on this roof, and I think if we get a pair of binoculars, we're gonna stare at I want to see if is that a fat woman eating a sandwich, or is that two people spooning? I can't tell, but we're gonna figure that out. We're gonna tweet that. Rich, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Like, those tattoos are crazy. I know when I want to make my first million, I'm gonna get the hands of Christ choking my neck. We'll be back.
Dope,
yeah, I just went like this.
So people are like, let me see that tat.
Like, oh, it's Jesus choking me. His hands are coming at you like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see like the holes because you know it's Jesus.
He's crazy.